the first thing that I want to cover is, so if I was to take over a team of French, English, American, and German, or
Hmm.
yeah, let's stick to German.
Yeah.
Um, I know for the German person in general, not to stereotype, but
Mhm.
in general, you could assume that person might need more structure and then get to meet the person, understand what do they really need. Maybe they need structure, and in that structure, they need the freedom to express themselves.
Hmm.
That's something like I, for instance, I need structure, but I
Hmm.
also need to have my ownership. I need to make
Yeah.
sure that in that structure, I own this. I can do what I want to do.
And that's also part of good leadership. When you, as a leader, think you need to control every single step
Yeah.
your salespeople do, first, I wish you good luck getting anything done
Yeah.
because you probably can lead 3 to 4 people like that, but not 8 or 10 or 15.
Yeah.
And also, no one wants to work like that. It's basically micromanagement in a nutshell.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
leave people with their freedom within certain boundaries.
I wonder now that you say that, I wonder that with leadership, is it is the cultural background that important, or is it more the human touch that is important? So is it more important? I'm just thinking, I feel like it's more important to have a one-to-one with your manager every month, every week, so that my manager gets to know me and then I am being managed rather than being terrified of the fact that, oh my goodness, I'm now having a team with someone who is like addressing the DACH market. I don't know the DACH market. So I
Mhm.
just gonna, give that person structure, or, give that person whatever, because that's what like the DACH market need. Um, how do you see that? How would you tackle that?
I think it's a both-sided game here. I give you a very simple example. So, for example, when I work in an interim project, which I do at the moment in the UK, then you, for example, receive feedback from your superior. And you need to learn the code, what Brits really mean when they say something. So when, for example, someone says, "Oh, thank you very much for putting all the effort into the report and the presentation. Very good ideas. Please send me the slide deck and I get back to you by next week." That feedback means rubbish. You missed the point. He will
Yeah.
not get back to you. You completely missed the point. And of course, either you learn the code of what they really mean. However, it is always possible, and that's something which I always recommend to leaders, adapt to the people you lead. So, for example, when I speak at a conference and I have British colleagues there and they say, "Hey, do you want feedback?" And there are always colleagues who I appreciate feedback from. So I tell them, "Yeah, please give me feedback."
Mm.
And then I always say, listen, I want feedback in a very specific way. Only mention the negative points. Anything else that you didn't mention automatically for me is good or excellent. So only mention the negative points because otherwise people start feedback like, "Oh, your speech, I think you had a really good opening." And my response to that inside myself as well, I'm doing this for more than 20 years. Would be pretty embarrassing if I couldn't open a speech by now, right? Would be a bit late to change that. So you can always ask people, how do you want to have feedback? How do you want to be led? So, as you just said, you want to have freedom in certain boundaries within your dedicated space. Talk to people how they want to be led. Some people want to be led very tightly. Give me numbers, give me advice, have a daily with me or a weekly to stick to Scrum methods here. And other people say, look, I basically want to have a quarterly meeting with you, and as long as I meet the results, just let me in peace. Then, of course, you have to say, hey, I need a bit more numbers because when you are about to miss your quarterly goal, I find out a week before the quarter ends, it might be a
Yeah.
bit late to help you
Yeah.
now. So
Yeah.
you have to find a middle ground for that. But the key to that is talk to people and really offer them what is the way you want to be led. And many people are very surprised when they hear that because often they are used to the following. They say, I get hired somewhere.
Mhm.
They present a leader to me, and then I adapt my behavior to what the leader wants.
Mhm.
Give you a very simple example of a company where, for example, some person said, the sales leader said, quality talks with clients mean you have an average phone call of 4 minutes or longer. My question then was, how do you get to the 4 minutes? Why is it 4 minutes, not five and not three
Yeah.
or eight or six and a
Yeah.
half? Where do you get the 4 minutes? It's my experience, he said. It's my experience is the equivalent to, I just made this up. There's no evidence to it. There's no proof. There's no science behind it. I just stepped the 4 minutes. And suspiciously to me, people had these numbers on a very high amount of talks. And when you work in sales, you know that there are these calls. Hey, are you, hello? Hello? 2 seconds, they just hung up because they were annoyed. You cannot have the average of 4 to 5 minutes every single time. And way too often people met this goal. So I wondered, could I please look into the data? And when I looked at the monthly data, I often saw beginning of the month, they were above or below the goal with lots of fluctuation. And the closer the end of the month went, the closer to the 4 minutes they got. And what happened was when people were above that, they did deliberate short calls to the movie hotline and just hung up. Clack, 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 clack. Okay, and now I'm at 4 minutes 34. So that's within the boundaries my sales manager set me. When your talks were too short, then they said, oh, I'm going to call the movie hotline for an hour. And then my average is exactly where it should be. So when you just blindly give numbers, when there is no scientific proof, no evidence, no rationale behind what you say, then people will make the numbers look like you want. As soon as you tell people it needs to look like XYZ, then people make it look like XYZ. And that happens on many different levels, not only in sales. When we look at Volkswagen, do you really think that no engineer in the whole company said, like, I think what we're doing here might not be that legal? Maybe, this thing that we just built in there, I don't think that's the idea.
Yeah.
But probably these people got told when you say something like that, you have to leave. So what happens is suddenly people just comply with what some senior executive says.
Yeah.
Everything you give as a leader needs to be fully transparent. It needs to be plausible. And the burden of proof is with you. The time that you can simply say, my experience tells me, or I'm in the market for 20 years, so, or my personal preference, my gut feeling says. Gut feelings surprisingly always align with the belief system of the manager that says them. So you get it your way because your gut feeling surprisingly complies with you.
Yeah.
When you look at, for example, Professor Cunning valuing HR work, and he always says when people in HR do something wrong, the best thing is to say, hey, we tried this, it was not right, we're sorry for that, we wasted money, but now we're moving on doing it better in the future. What happens in reality is people say, we made good experiences with that. Our leadership training is with horses, and people lead horses around somewhere, and then they become good leaders. Then you look into science, find out zero scientific evidence for this approach. But often people say, we made good experiences with that. And then Professor Cunningham always says, well, you're looking back at your own work. When you look at your own work, you most likely will not look back and say, looking at my last 2 years are pretty rubbish, I think. No one will get to that conclusion because you risk your job. And this kind of confirmation bias that we have there often happens in sales as well. People who are very close to the client, who talk to clients all day long, see certain tendencies. How does a client want to be contacted? How long do they want to be contacted? What is the frequency they want to be contacted? And then someone who just does a sales manager's or sales leaders or sales director's job for a decade says, oh no, we always called them 4 times a month. And then someone says, look, they told me not to call again before next quarter. Oh, you call them. I'm sure they do something with you. Yeah, they hung up.
Yeah.
They hang up and tell you that I told you not to call and you called. So thank you. That was it for you.
Yeah. So what I'm taking away is the first one is one-on-one leadership, like making sure that you get to know the person to understand, okay, how do they want to communicate? And here, if there's someone,
one-to-ones are very important. Yeah.
Yeah, super, super crucial. Because like for instance, I need the shit sandwich. I need someone to tell me I did something good and that's not good. And then I will naturally be like, I will naturally drive to that one negative thing and I will revise over and over. And it's like, okay, cool. This is it. But I still feel fine. So this is so interesting. And we're both, we're both from the DACH area, so from the DACH region. So again, guys, yes, there are stereotypes, and stereotypes are made out of an average of thousands of points of data. So make sure you have that one-on-one and get to know the person. The other point that I take away is the data. Like, don't do it because it was always done like that. If that was the case, you would still use horses to go to work.
Exactly.
So we have to change that, look at the data. And I love the 3 points that you said. Leadership is fully transparent, plausible, and please correct me if I'm wrong. I literally wrote that down, but there was so much
Yeah.
that you said. Responsibility of outcome lies with you as a leader.
And
Is
the
that
burden of proof lies with you. The
burden,
burden of
burden
proof
of
lies
proof,
with you. The
burden
burden
of,
of proof lies with you. So
burden of
when
proof.
you make some claim, you need to tell people where does this come from. So for example, if you as a sales executive say, hey, a study in exactly our industry just got to the conclusion that the best talking time to a client is 4 minutes 30. They
Yeah.
evaluated 10,000 phone calls and that's the result. Perfect. When you say 4 minutes talk time and someone says why, and you say that's my experience,
Yeah.
or someone else has a different experience. Where do these spawn? Maybe, and then people love to just stick a pole in the ground and say that's it. Maybe you heard of, oh, the first impression is just 7 seconds. Nowhere in science you find these 7 seconds, but people, numbers between 7 or more somehow ring a bell with people. Yeah, there are 4 personality types. No, surprise, we can't shut down the Department of Psychology because we now figured out by a personality test of 45 minutes how to run psychology. But the problem is some people are anti-science because it is a lot of work. And I don't say that you need to have a scientific degree. There are degrees, there are certificates, there are courses by universities. There is something like Coursera or edX. There are many vendors there that give you access to scientific data. You don't need to read through a 4,000-page PDF if you don't like to. But when you deny science, you will always be the runner-up at the end of any game because people who rely on science in the long run always win because they go by the facts and not by some sort of feeling.